Alright, good morning everyone. We are here with break 465. It is another 26 League Heroes retail combo break, and it features the 26 League Heroes retail case, 26 League Heroes starters case, as well as the bonuses, which gets randomised at the end of the break between all 17 teams. And they are the 26 League Heroes hobby box, as well as the 26 sticker album and box combo. Our team list for this one: Broncos, Jason Biegemann; Raiders, Gareth, Lawson; Bulldogs, Jim Dellas. Sorry mate if that's not correct. Sharks, Douglas Byers; Dolphins, George Grispos; Titans, Mel Colquhoun; Manly, Greg King; Storm, Corey McRoberts; Knights, Scott McBryde; Cowboys, Corey McRoberts; Eels, Craig Hyde; Panthers, Chris Rose; Rabbitohs, Scott McBryde; Dragons, Dean Mick; Roosters, Scott McBryde; Warriors, George Grispos; Tigers, Brianne McLaughlin. And let's change. Here we are. You can see the bonuses. We have the sticker album with the 5 sticker packs. We have the sticker box and the 26 League Heroes hobby box. As I mentioned, they do get randomised at the end of the break between all 17 teams. Let's bring up the YouTube chat and our team list. All right. All right, well, that's not looking good. YouTube's showing me that we're not running the best so far this morning. Everything looks like it's connected properly. The streaming software looks like it's running fine. Can we drop that down while we're live? No. Can't drop that down either. Alright, well, actually, YouTube looks like it's improving. Still not as high as it likes, but it's improving. So let's get into it. So as we've been doing, this is part 1, the retail case. We'll smash this one out and have a bit of break and come back with part 2, which is the starters case and the bonuses. We'll randomise them after the starters case. New break listed yesterday at 4 o'clock, and the last one will be listed today at 4 o'clock. And when I say last one, it's the last of our 26 League Heroes. As I mentioned before, we've had a good run. That'll be break 469. We started around 410 with 26 League Heroes, so that's basically 60 26 League Heroes breaks. That's quite massive. And they've all been a case of something, whether it be a hobby case or a retail case. We haven't done any of the smaller breaks, which is good and bad. Good because I like to see the tray full when we're finished. I don't like to finish a break and a team have nothing at all. That just feels bad. But they obviously take some time, which is why we're now splitting these ones up. Alright, box number 1. One thing I do want to mention before we get started, guys, is the number of entries in the Pick the Score giveaway. Yeah, like, I'm not sure if people aren't seeing it, forgetting to go look for it, but this round, $150 gift card up for grabs. Yeah, league heads, Dylan Walker for the Eels. Tipping, Luminous, Carl Lawson for the Cowboys. Tipping comp, we're up to over 222 people. You could still join. It's based on a weekly round. It's not overall. Bang, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Next year, we're going to have to work something out where you need to register before you join it, just so I have the information. Game Breakers, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. We haven't been able to do this week's top tipper because we don't know who one of them are. So, die cuts, Bradman Best for the Knights. Trent LaRoe for Storm. We are still looking for Jared P. If we haven't heard from him by 4 o'clock this afternoon, well, Nathan will receive the gift card. League heads, Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Game Breakers, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Bang, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Luminous, Murata Nakor for the Warriors. League heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous, Moses Leota for Panthers. Game Breakers, Bree Chester for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Mercury, James Tedesco for the Roosters, number 395. Luminous, Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. League heads, Reece Walsh for the Broncos. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Bang, Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Game Breakers Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. League Heads Chans Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Die cut Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. League Heads Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous Fa'alago for Storm. Game Breakers Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. Clive Churchill. Luminous Tamale for the Raiders. Red Triumph for the Sharks. Luminous Wade Egan for the Warriors. League Heads Keanu Kinney for the Titans. Luminous Latu Fainu for the Tigers. Game Breakers Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League Heads Jake Trbojevic for Manly. Luminous Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Bang Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League Heads Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Luminous Keanu Kinney for Titans. Gladiators Valentine Holmes for the Dragons. Number 261. Luminous Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Game Breakers Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Angelina for the Bulldogs. Bang Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Zach Lomax for the Eels. League Heads, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Die Cuts, Jesse Arthurs for the Broncos. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. League Heads, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Luminous, Greg Marshue for the Knights. Bang, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous, Kulikefu for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Die Cuts, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. League Heads, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Luminous, Emma Veron for the Sharks. Alright, box number 1. League Heads, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Bang, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. League heads Samula Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous Lachlan Galvin for the Tigers. Game breakers Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Die cuts Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Luminous Hugo Savala for the Roosters. League heads Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Luminous Falago for Storm. Game breakers Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous Brendan Smith for the Rabbitohs. We have a gold triumph Tamale for the Raiders. And I'm just noticing we lost our team list. There we are. Bang Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous Emma Veron for the Sharks. Game breakers Julia Robinson for the Broncos. Luminous Samula Fainu for the Tigers. League heads Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Die cuts Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. League heads Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous Philip Semi for the Titans. Bang Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. League heads Falago for Storm. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. Die cuts Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Game breakers Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Red Triumph Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. Game breakers, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Greg Marshew for the Knights. Bang, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous, Kulikefu for the Dolphins. League heads, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous, Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Gladiators, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs, number 115. Luminous, Appy Nichols for the Warriors. Game breakers, Tegan Dimick for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Carl Lawson for the Cowboys. League heads, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Game breakers, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Bang, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous, Trent Leroux for Storm. League heads, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Jamal Fogarty for Manly. Die cuts, Tyson Frizzell for Knights. Luminous, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Game breakers, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Red Triumph, Jack Bostock for Dolphins. Luminous, Moses Leotta for Panthers. Mercury, Jerome Luai for the Tigers, number 132. Luminous, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. League heads, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Luminous, Mackenzie Wheel for the Cowboys. League heads, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous, Zahara Tamara for the Raiders. Bang, Tyron Wishart for Storm. Luminous, Brian To'o for Panthers. And last pack for box number 2. League heads, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Luminous, Luke Lordelli for the Tigers. Started off strong. 2 big hits in our first 2 boxes. Alright, box number 3. Luke Brooks, die cut for Manly. Luminous, Max Plath for Dolphins. League heads, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Luminous, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Sophie Holliman for the Raiders. Luminous, Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Bang, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. League heads, Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. Luminous, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Red Triumph for the Raiders. Luminous, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Game breakers, Billy Walters for the Broncos. Luminous, Tamika Upton for the Broncos. League heads, Alex Twile for Tigers. Luminous, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Game breakers, Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Bang, Philip Semi for the Titans. Luminous, Ben Trebojevic for Manly. Game breakers, Tyron Wishart for the Storm. Luminous, Sanua Taruva for the Tigers. League heads, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Will Penasini for the Eels. Die cuts, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous, Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. League heads, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Game breakers, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Bang, Cameron Munster for Storm. Luminous, Saratoga Tukey for Tigers. League heads, Stefano Utakamanu for Storm. Luminous, Connolly Lumi Lou for Dolphins. Dally M Predictor. Luminous, Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. Mercury, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Number 375. Luminous, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Game breakers, Max Plath for the Dolphins. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. League heads, Jack Williams for the Eels. Luminous, Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. Bang, Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. Luminous, Ali Briganshaw for the Broncos. Game breakers, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. League heads, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous, Casey McLean for Panthers. Bang, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous, Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. League heads, Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. Game Breakers Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous William Kennedy for the Sharks. Gladiators Phoenix Crossland for the Knights, number 557. Luminous Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. League Heads Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. John Bateman die cut for the Cowboys. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Bang Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. League Heads Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Game Breakers Tommy Turbo for Manly. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. League Heads Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Red Triumph Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. Alright, box number 3 done and dusted. Alright, box number 4. Game Breakers Cameron Munster for the Storm. Luminous Big Tino for Titans. League Heads Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Kale Iro for the Sharks. Game Breakers Payne-Haas for the Broncos. Luminous Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Bang Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous Jason Saab for Manly. League Heads Hamolik Olika Atu for Manly. Luminous Ryan Pappenhausen for Storm. Die cuts Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous Gehamat Shabarski for the Broncos. Game Breakers Emily Bass for the Tigers. Luminous Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Bang Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. League Heads Cohen Hess for Cowboys. Luminous Keezy Apps for Tigers. Die cut Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous Brighton Nakora for the Sharks. Mercury Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys, number 420. Luminous Kalen Ponga for the Knights. League Heads Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Game Breakers Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Isaac Tago for Panthers. Bang Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Alefiana Kampi Era for Titans. League Heads Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous Addo Carr for the Eels. Die cuts Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous Robert Toya for the Roosters. League Heads Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Sean Russell for the Eels. Game Breakers Kurt Catewell for the Warriors. Luminous Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Bang Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League Heads Connolly Lumi Lou for the Dolphins. Luminous Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Red Triumph, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. Die Cut, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. League Heads, Liam Martin for Panthers. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. Bang, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous, Hamoli Olika R2 for Manly. Gladiators, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. And number 425. Luminous, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. League Heads, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Luminous, Mawaki Fotuaika for Titans. Game Breakers, Jesse Colquhoun for the Sharks. Luminous, Ali Brigginshaw for the Broncos. Bang, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. League Heads, Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Luminous, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Triumph for the Storm. Luminous, Casey McLean for Panthers. League Heads, Max King for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Chance Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Luminous, Ethan Sanders for the Raiders. League Heads, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous, William Kennedy for the Sharks. And last pack for box number 4. Aaron Clark, die cut for the Warriors. Luminous, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Alright, let's go. Box number 5. League heads, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Luminous, Dylan Egan for the Warriors. Game breakers, Tolator Koala for Manly. Luminous, Abby Church for the Eels. League heads, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Die cuts, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous, Zaya Yo for Panthers. Game breakers, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous, Dylan Brown for the Knights. Bang, Jermaine Isako for the Dolphins. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. League heads, Patrick Carrion for the Broncos. Luminous, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Mercury, Keanu Kinney for the Titans, number 352. Luminous, Saya Yongi for the Eels. Game breakers, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Bang, Tony Staggs for the Broncos. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. League heads, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Die cuts, Jaden Campbell for the Titans. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders. Game breakers, Dylan Lucas for the Knights. Luminous Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Triumph Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous Hammer for the Dolphins. League Heads Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Jaden Sewer Bang for the Dragons. Luminous Nico Hines for the Sharks. League Heads Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Game Breakers Zach Labert for the Cowboys. Luminous Reese Walsh for the Broncos. Gladiators Saya Youngie for the Eels, number 83. Luminous Tolotokawala for Manly. League Heads Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. Luminous Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Bang Bailey Simonson for the Eels. Luminous Payne Haas for Broncos. Game Breakers Fanua Pole for the Tigers. Luminous Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Die Cuts Saya Youngie for the Eels. Luminous Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. League Heads Ethan Blumore for Manly. Luminous Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Game Breakers Anessa Biddle for the Sharks. Luminous Jaden Campbell for the Titans. League Heads Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous Taylor Preston for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Luminous Ethan Blumore for Manly. Bang Tolotokawala for Manly. Luminous Jesse Colquhoun for the Sharks. League Heads Phoenix Crossland for the Knights. Luminous Kurt Capewell for the Warriors. Triumph for the Warriors. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Tuikami Kamika for Storm. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. League Heads Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Die Cuts Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Bang Hugo Savala for the Roosters. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. Instant win. Luminous Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. And that's box number 5 done and dusted. Getting a bit full there. Push these on the back. There we go. Alright, box number 6. Gladiators Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors, number 576. Luminous Murray Talagi for the Cowboys. League Heads Tommy Dearden for the Cowboys. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Game Breakers Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League Heads Mitch Kenny for Panthers. Luminous Tuikami Kamika for Storm. Game Breakers Dane Gagai for the Knights. Jake Trbojevic Luminous for Manly. Die Cuts Zach Hosking for the Raiders. Luminous Sean Kepe for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers Daniel Tupou for the Roosters. Tegan Berry Luminous for the Dragons. League heads, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, White for the Roosters. Bang, Jalen de Groot for Titans. Luminous, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. League heads, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Die cuts, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Bang, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Game breakers, Big Tino for the Titans. Luminous, Tommy Turbo for Manly. League heads, Angus Crichton for Roosters. Luminous, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Game breakers, Stephen Crichton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Roger Tuivasa Sheck for the Warriors. Die cuts, Sean Bloor for the Storm. Luminous, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. League heads, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Tiana Penatani Gray for the Sharks. Game breakers, Abby Church for the Eels. Luminous, Terrell May for Tigers. Bang, Whenua Pole for the Tigers. Jack Williams, Luminous for the Eels. League heads, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Luminous, Stefano Utakamanu for Storm. Red Triumph for the Knights. Luminous, KO Weeks for the Raiders. League heads, Payne Haas for the Broncos. Luminous, Beau Fermor for Titans. Game breakers, Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Luminous, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Die cuts, Jake Clifford for the Cowboys. Luminous, Alex Twile for Tigers. League heads, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous, Tyron Wishart for Storm. Bang, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Kira Dibb for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Ali for the Warriors. Luminous, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. League heads, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Luminous, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Bang, Ali Latour for the Warriors. Luminous, Bradman Best for the Knights. Die cuts, Ethan Bullymore for Manly. Luminous, Junior Paulo for the Eels. League heads, Adam Whenua Blake for the Sharks. Luminous, Felice Kafusi for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Angus Crichton for the Roosters. Luminous, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Bang, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Lachlan Elias for the Dragons. League heads, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Luminous, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Mercury, Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. 261. Luminous, Max King for the Bulldogs. And final pack for box 6. Red Triumph, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Luminous, Lawson Albert Jones for the Warriors. Alright, let's tidy these up and move them along. Box number 7. Halfway through the retail case now, guys. Bang, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Luminous Matthew Tomoko for the Raiders. League Heads Moses Leota for Panthers. Luminous Luke Metcalf for the Warriors. Game Breakers Nafor White for the Roosters. Luminous Saratoga Tuki for Tigers. Die Cuts Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous Connolly Lumi Lou for the Dolphins. League Heads Ezra Mam for the Broncos. Luminous Samuel Stone Street for the Sharks. Game Breakers Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous Tanila Paseka for Manly. Premiership Predictor. Luminous Sam Walker for the Roosters. League Heads Chans Nico Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous John Bateman for the Cowboys. Bang Joash for Eels. Luminous Jamin Salmon for Bulldogs. Game Breakers Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Luminous Cameron Munster for Storm. League Heads Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. Gladiators Ezra Mam for the Broncos, number 221. Bailey Simonson for the Eels. League Heads Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Game Breakers Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Luminous Luciano Le Lua for the Dragons. Xavier Coates Bang for Storm. Luminous Katoni Staggs for the Broncos. League Heads Asai Katoa for Dolphins. Luminous Asai Papalihi for Panthers. Mercury KO Weeks for the Raiders. Number 201. Jacob Carraz, Luminous for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs. Luminous Alex Seafarth for the Tigers. Die Cuts, Thomas Jenkins for Panthers. Luminous Zali Hopkins for the Dragons. Bang Alafiana Kanpi Era for Titans. Luminous Kurt Mann for Bulldogs. League Heads, Sam Walker for the Roosters. Luminous Jermaine McEwen for the Knights. Game Breakers, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Luminous James Tedesco for the Roosters. League Heads, Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous Max Plath for the Dolphins. Red Triumph, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Bang Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Regan Campbell Gillard for the Titans. League Heads, Ethan Strange for the Raiders. Luminous Jackson Purdue for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Luminous Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Black Latu Fainu for the Tigers. Luminous Tom Starling for the Raiders. I was just off in my own little world thinking about something else. At least it was related to the cards. League Heads, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous Tamika Upton for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Luminous Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Red Triumph for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Ben Trebojevic for Manly. League heads, Harry Grant for Storm. Luminous, Sanua Taruva for Tigers. Game breakers, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Will Penasini for the Eels. League heads, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Luminous, Jonah Pezzett for the Storm. Die cuts, Zach Lomax for the Eels. And Luminous, Keon Kolomatangi to finish off box number 7. Box number 8. Die cuts, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Game breakers, Nita Maynard for the Dragons. Luminous, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Bang, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Luminous, Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. League heads, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous, Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. Luminous, Apisai Coruscant for Tigers. League heads, Luke Brooks for Manly. Luminous, Liam Martin for Panthers. Game breakers, Asaya Iongi for the Eels. Luminous, Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Gladiators, Ethan Bullymore for Manly, number 448. Luminous, Luca Moretti for Eels. League heads, Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. Luminous, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Die cuts, Matthew Feagai for the Dragons. Luminous, Val Holmes for the Dragons. League heads, Bradman Best for the Knights. Luminous, Big Tino for the Titans. Bang, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. League heads, Dream Buller for the Tigers. Luminous, Jason Saab for Manly. Mercury, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Number 14. Luminous, Pappenhausen for Storm. Die cuts, Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Luminous, Gehamat Shabarsky for the Broncos. League heads, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Jacob Preston for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers, Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Luminous, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. League heads, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Keezy Apps for Tigers. Bang, Brian To'o for Panthers. Luminous, Cody Walker for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Cody Brighton Nikora. Get it out. Die cuts, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Kalen Ponga for the Knights. Game Breakers, Patricia for the Warriors. Luminous, Lycan King Togia for the Dragons. Bang, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Isaac Tago for Panthers. Daly M. Predictor. League heads, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous, Alifiana Karmke Error for Titans. Die cuts, Phoenix Crossland for Knights. Luminous, Addo Carr for the Eels. League heads, Lindsay Collins for the Roosters. Luminous, Robert Toyer for the Roosters. Bang, Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous, Samaima Torfa for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. League heads, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous, Jai Gray for the Rabbitohs. Red Triumph, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Reed Marnie for the Cowboys. League heads, John Bateman for the Cowboys. Luminous, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Adam Dewey for the Tigers. Bang, Chance Nicole Klokstad for the Warriors. Luminous, Dominic Young for the Knights. Die cuts, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Ali Latua for the Warriors. League heads, Lehe Hopewate for Manly. Luminous, Jordan Ricky for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous, Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Game Breakers, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. League heads, Greg Marshew for the Knights. Luminous, Harry Grant for Storm. Bang, Jesse Ramian for the Sharks. Luminous, Ronaldo Molitalo for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Alex Twal for the Tigers. Luminous, Jacob Saifiti for the Knights. Red Triumph, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Luminous, Zach Labert for the Cowboys. League heads, Joash for the Eels. Luminous, Loco Tonga for the Dragons. Die cuts, Sua Wong for the Roosters. Luminous, Luke Brooks for Manly. League heads, Keon Kolomatangi for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Asai Katoa for Dolphins. Game Breakers, Trent LaRoe for Storm. Luminous, Xavier Savage for the Raiders. Bang, Sanua Taruva for the Tigers. Luminous, Georgia Hale for the Titans. League heads, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Luminous, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Luminous, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Die cuts, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. League heads, Apsai Coruscant for Tigers. Luminous and Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Kale Iro for the Sharks. Luminous, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. League heads, Tom Starling for the Raiders. Luminous, Jalen DeGroot for Titans. Game breakers, AJ Brimson for the Titans. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Bang, Tamale for the Raiders. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. League heads, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Die cuts, Sebastian Chris for the Raiders. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Bang, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Wade Egan for the Warriors. Game breakers, Dominic Young for the Knights. Luminous, Latu Fainu for Tigers. Die cuts, Payne Huss for the Broncos. Luminous, Ezra Mam for the Broncos. League heads, Mawaki Fodawaika for the Titans. Luminous, Tom Dearden for the Cowboys. Game breakers, Jermaine Hopgood for the Eels. Luminous, Jai Arrow for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. Luminous, Keanu Kinney for Titans. Bang, James Tedesco for the Roosters. Luminous, Kyle Flanagan for the Dragons. Game breakers, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous, Angelina for the Bulldogs. League heads, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Zach Lomax for the Eels. Mercury, Trent LaRoe for Storm, number 190. Luminous, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. League heads, Jermaine Isako for Dolphins. Luminous, Jamie Humphries for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Adam Reynolds for the Broncos. Luminous, Billy Walters for the Broncos. And last packet for box number 9. Gladiators, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Number 301. Luminous Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Bang, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous Samula Fainu for the Tigers. League Heads, Lindsay Smith for the Panthers. Luminous Ray Stone for the Dolphins. Game Breakers, Cameron McInnes for the Sharks. Stephen Crichton, Luminous for Bulldogs. League Heads, Cody Nicarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Philip Semi for Titans. Game Breakers, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous Patrick Carrigan for the Broncos. Die cuts, Jake Averillo for the Dolphins. Luminous Dane Gagai for the Knights. League Heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous Connor Watson for the Roosters. Mercury Hammer for the Dolphins. Number 263. Luminous Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Game Breakers, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Luminous Dylan Walker for the Eels. League Heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Zahara Temera for the Raiders. Bang Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous Brian Todd for Panthers. League Heads, Robert Toya for the Roosters. Luminous Luke Lolili for Tigers. Nathan Cleary, die cuts for Panthers. Luminous Murray Talagi for Cowboys. Game Breakers, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous Chanel Harris Tavita for the Warriors. Gladiators, Tommy Gilbert for Dolphins, number 106. Luminous, Blake Brayley for the Sharks. League heads, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Oh, excuse me. Tui Kamika for Storm. Oh. Hiccup and a yawn and hell knows what else. Diecat Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Luminous Jake Jaboyevich for Manly. Game breakers, Shaylee Bent for the Titans. Luminous, Sean Kepe for the Rabbitohs. League heads, Renato Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Nafor White for the Roosters. Die-cut, Jareem Buller for the Tigers. Luminous, Jack Bostock for Dolphins. League heads, Jaden Sewer for the Dragons. Luminous, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Game breakers, Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Luminous, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Bang, Ronaldo Mulatalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Xavier Willison for the Broncos. Red Triumph, Jack Bostock for the Dolphins. Luminous, Tommy Turbo for Manly. League heads, Terrell May for the Tigers. Luminous, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Bang, Dylan Edwards for Panthers. Luminous, Connor Tracy for the Bulldogs. Game breakers, Latrell Mitchell for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck for the Warriors. Stefano Utokamanu, die cut for Storm. Luminous, Tiana Penatani, grey for Sharks. League heads, Gehamat Shabarski for the Broncos. Luminous, Terrell May for the Tigers. Red Triumph, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous, Jack Williams for the Eels. Game Breakers, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Stefano Utakumanu, Luminous for Storm. 5 packets left for box number 10. League Heads, Alefiana Kampi Era for Titans. Luminous, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Game Breakers, Tamir Martin for the Warriors. Luminous, Beau Fermor for Titans. League Heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Jason Tormalolo, Luminous for the Cowboys. Oh, get open. Bloody corner. Bang, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Alex 12 for the Tigers. That one corner just did not want to budge. Bang, Lachlan Galvin for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Tegan Berry for the Dragons. And that finishes off box number 10. 2 to go. Tidy these up. Bang, Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Hudson Young for the Raiders. League Heads, Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Luminous, Leka Halasima for the Warriors. Game Breakers, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Hammer for the Dolphins. League Heads, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Cohen Hess for the Cowboys. Die Cuts, Xavier Coates for Storm. Luminous, Nico Hines for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Olivia Higgins for the Knights. Luminous, Lehe Hopawate for Manly. League Heads, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Morgan Smithies for the Raiders. Bang, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Dean Mariner for the Broncos. Game Breakers, Herbie Farmworth for the Dolphins. Luminous Isabel Kelly for the Roosters. Red Triumph for the Broncos. Luminous Nelson Asafa Solomona for Storm. League Heads, Jacob Little for the Dragons. Luminous Alex Johnston for the Rabbitohs. Game Breakers, Billy Smith for the Roosters. Luminous Valami Kickout for the Bulldogs. Die Cuts, Clayton for Lalo for Manly. Luminous Apasai Coruscant for the Tigers. League Heads, Joseph Tarpanay for the Raiders. Luminous Liam Martin for Panthers. Game Breakers, James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Luminous Scott Drinkwater for the Cowboys. Bang Chanel Harris to Vita for the Warriors. Luminous Luca Moretti for the Eels. League Heads, Jerome Hughes for Storm. Luminous James Fisher-Harris for the Warriors. Daily M Predictor, Yasmin Clydesdale, Luminous for the Knights. League Heads, Jason Saab for Manly. Luminous Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Bang Nico Hines for the Sharks. Luminous Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Game Breakers, Blaze Talagi for Panthers. Luminous Dream Buller for Tigers. League Heads, Cody Nikarima for the Dolphins. Luminous Xavier Coates for Storm. Die Cuts, Luca Moretti for the Eels. Luminous Herbie Farnworth for the Dolphins. League Heads, Alafiana Kampi Era for Titans. Luminous Dylan Egan for the Dragons. Red Triumph, Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Abby Church for the Eels. League heads, Will Penasini for the Eels. Luminous, Spencer Lenu for the Roosters. Game breakers, Cameron Murray for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Isaiah Yeo for Panthers. Bang, Campbell Graham for the Rabbitohs. Luminous, Dylan Brown for the Knights. League heads, Jeremiah Nanai for the Cowboys. Luminous, Clinton Gutherson for the Dragons. Die cuts, Kale Arrow for Sharks. Luminous, Ben Hunt for the Broncos. League heads, Lindsay Smith for Panthers. Luminous, Isaiah Ioi for the Eels. Bang, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Gladiators, Jaden Campbell for the Titans, number 162. Matt Burton, Luminous for the Bulldogs. 3 packets left in box number 11. Game breakers, William Kennedy for the Sharks. Luminous, Jamie Chapman for the Titans. Mercury, Saitili Tupanua for the Bulldogs, number 302. Luminous, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Game breakers, Ruben Cotter for the Cowboys. Luminous, Val Holmes for the Dragons. Alright, box number 11 done and dusted. Let's move these out of our way. We don't put the last 2 in the boxes because we only need 10 boxes to fit them all in, which also includes the base cards out of the starters. Game breakers, Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Luminous, John Bateman for the Cowboys. League heads, Sam Verrills for the Titans. Luminous, Jamin Salmon for the Bulldogs. Bang, Braden Trindle for the Sharks. Luminous, Cameron Munster for Storm. Game Breakers Keezy Apps for Tigers. Luminous Brian Kelly for the Titans. League Heads Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous Bailey Simonson for the Eels. League Heads Marata Nakor for the Warriors. Luminous Jesse Southwell for the Knights. Die Cuts Matt Burton for the Bulldogs. Luminous Luciano Leilua for the Dragons. Game Breakers Isaiah Yo for Panthers. Luminous Katoni Staggs for Broncos. Bang Lehe Hopawate for Manly. Luminous Isaiah Papalihi for Panthers. League Heads Jack Whiten for the Rabbitohs. Luminous Jacob Carraz for the Bulldogs. Game Breakers Jason Tormalolo for the Cowboys. Luminous Alex Seyfarth for Tigers. Red Triumph for the Titans. Luminous Keon Colomatingi for the Rabbitohs. Die Cuts Blake Brayley for the Sharks. Luminous Ali Latua for the Warriors. League Heads Connor Watson for the Roosters. Luminous Jordan Ricky for Broncos. Game Breakers Junior Paulo for the Eels. Luminous Jessica Surgis for the Roosters. Bang Lekahala Sema for the Warriors. Luminous Mitchell Moses for the Eels. Gladiators Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Number 418. Luminous Harry Grant for the Storm. League Heads KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous Renato Militalo for the Sharks. Game Breakers Mitchell Barnett for the Warriors. Luminous Zach Labert for the Cowboys. Bang Hammer for the Dolphins. Luminous Loco for the Dragons. League heads, Brian Totter for Panthers. Luminous, Luke Brooks for Manly. Die cuts, Egan Butcher for the Roosters. Luminous, Asai Katoa for Dolphins. League heads, Jerome Luai for Tigers. Luminous, Xavier Savage for Raiders. Bang, KO Weeks for the Raiders. Luminous, Georgia Hale for the Titans. Game Breakers, Brian Kelly for the Titans. Luminous, Josh Kerr for the Dragons. League heads, Kurt Mann for the Bulldogs. Luminous, Ruben Garrick for Manly. Mercury, Ethan Blumore for Manly, number 307. Luminous, Mitch Kenny for Panthers. League heads, Moses Sulai for the Dragons. Luminous, Adam Fanua Blake for the Sharks. Game Breakers, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Bailey Haywood for the Bulldogs. League heads, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Luminous, Tyson Frizzell for the Knights. Die cuts, Damien Cook for the Dragons. Luminous, Jalen DeGroot for the Titans. League heads, Fletcher Sharp for the Knights. Luminous, Corey Horsburgh for the Raiders. Bang, Ryan Pappenhausen for the Storm. Luminous, Cassie Hiku for the Eels. 3 packets left through our retail case. Game Breakers, Yasmin Clydesdale for the Knights. Luminous, Marky Mark for the Roosters. Red Triumph, Nathan Cleary for Panthers. Luminous, Tom Gilbert for the Dolphins. Alright. What do we got? What do we got? Die cut, AJ Brimson for the Titans. And Luminous, Jacob Saifiti to finish it off. Alright, let's just quickly move these out of our way and go back to the beginning, which was a Clive Churchill predictor. number 140 for the Rabbitohs. So we got Scott McBryde with the Rabbitohs. And our Golden Triumph number 75, Jerome Luai for the Tigers. Brianne McLaughlin. Don't forget, guys, we still have our retail case. We are listing another break today at 4 o'clock. So what's that? 3.5 hours away. And that will be our last 26 League Heroes break. Still a couple of breaks up with some teams available. But for now, Addo Car Dally M, number 223. And don't forget to enter the weekly Pick the Score giveaway, guys. We had a bonus for State of Origin Game 2. We chucked another one in there. No lucky winners, so it helped bump up the round 16 gift card, jackpotting another $25. And here's our instant win for the Roosters, Scott McBryde with them. And Premiership Predictor, number 72 for the Warriors, George Grispos. Alright, we have 2 to go before our break. Dally M Predictor number 206 is a wild card for the Knights. Alright, lucky last for our retail case. Number 176, Dally M Predictor. Tamale for the Raiders. Alright, well, it is time for our break. We will be back shortly with the starter case. Keep an eye on the Facebook post. I will put the fresh link up there just before we're ready to go. Until then, guys, that is it. That is all.